Mike McCarthy had a press conference just to talk with the media before the NFL draft, which we are less than 24 hours away. So let's get into this one.
All right. Hey, good afternoon. First, I'd just like to start off speaking on the offseason program. I think we're in a really good spot. We're 2.5 weeks in. I've been very pleased with the participation. I first want to acknowledge the coaching staff, between preparing for the draft and just really crushing it, pulling the playbooks together. Offense, defense, special teams, game management, those things, and just making everything readily available for our players, because we believe it's a player first teaching environment. So I thought our coaching staff has done an excellent job, and the support staff has done an incredible job supporting us getting ready. So we've been able to really, for 2.5 weeks, push a high volume of information to our players. The players have been outstanding, and really at the end of the day, the goal is by June 12th to make sure every one of our players has what they need schematically, the communication, the details of each and every one of their roles and their responsibilities. And I think we're off to an excellent start. I've been very, very impressed and appreciative of the time spent by our players connecting with the new coaching staff. With that, I'll take your questions.
Is it unusual to have in your other stops to have this much participation this early in the process?
I'd say no. This is what I'm accustomed to. I think this lines up with my other opportunities. But it's our league changes. You get rules are changing, and the makeup of your roster is never the same. So I think with just all those attributes of our roster, I think we're in a really good place after 2.5 weeks.
Mike, as far as new coaches, assistant coaches, you're new players, realistically, how long do you think it would take for everything to kind of gel to get to a place where you feel comfortable moving forward with the season?
Well, I think the reality of it is, we're created a teaching environment for us to be able to communicate with a common language. Football will always be football, but everybody looks at things a little differently, emphasizes them a little different way. That's why all 32 teams are different in how they approach the game. Everybody still has the same fundamentals, but the teams really don't come together till training camp. Let's just be real. That's our first opportunity for real football. Right now it's just a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of interaction. It just really, this used to be called this, and now we're calling it that. This is the technique that goes with this particular, and how this fits together. I think when you have the opportunity to install a system of offense, defense, or special teams, I've always felt, and this is purely it started from a quarterback's perspective. You teach everything conceptually, and when you do that, it slows everything down, and it gives you an opportunity to teach things in buckets. Like the passing game, for instance, will be taught in 14 buckets. So it'll take 14 opportunities with the perimeter guys to put that in. The run game will be taught in 7 buckets. So, and it's harder to learn that way because, not hard, it's easier to learn that way, but the application to how it's really going to be utilized is over a big picture focus. And what I'm saying is, when you put a protection in and then you challenge it versus every defense, that's not really realistic, because that protection particularly may not be ran in third down. But it's a great exercise for our players to learn from the core, from the foundation of what that particular concept is. So when you do it this way, it'll take a good 6 weeks, and then when we get to the OTAs, now we'll go play. Hey, let's install and play like a normal, but we're still in helmets and and shorts. So you do what you can there, and you lean on the things that you're able to practice. So that's the process. Done it a long time that way. It works, but we're really just making sure everybody is truly ready for when we get off that bus, or when we arrive in Latrobe, that it's all ball. We got the acclimation period, but then we get that first padded practice on August 3rd, if you're wondering. So then we get to go out there and play football.
When you talk about that, when you talk about the communication and learning from the guys, are you having sit-down meetings to absorb that information from guys, the veterans here, and moving forward, or does that just come during practice, learning things like that?
Well, the beginning, the starting point of that, we're really kind of past that. We had an opportunity to meet with a number of players, particularly, January, February, March, but. I call it, scheme implementation is the phase that we're in right now. So the scheme development was really what we were going through as a staff the last 3 months. So, but as you implement, the conversations we have with our players are so valuable because this is where things get tweaked and changed and adjusted, and then the final product will be ready on June 12th. That's the outlook. That's how you want to do it, and that's how I've done it. And it works very well. So the input from the players is the process we're in right now.
Mike, how have you found the buy-in from the players, especially the veterans, to the changes?
Yeah, buy-in's excellent. And I think it's just like anything. There's three things that happen in these situations, and it's a yearly focus of mine. You have to make changes. There's things you're going to adjust, and then there's things you're going to emphasize. So the fortunate part for this program that's being established, there's a lot of positives to emphasize and build off of. There's things you clearly adjust, that's normal, and then there's things that you change, and that'll always be my approach, yearly basis. But I think the buy-in has been excellent.
A lot of these guys have only known one coach. They only know a world with Tomlinisms. Have there been any funny anecdotes or stories with TJ or Cam or some of the older guys adjusting to hearing your voice out there on the field instead of the same one they've had for so long?
I would say this. It's the first time I called the plays in the quarterback's helmet. So I need to work on my punch and bunch enunciations. So they keep telling me to go downtown. I said we'll get to that. So, but yeah, we'll work for those things. I don't have any great stories for you yet. No.
With some level of uncertainty or indecision surrounding Aaron, at what point in this process do you need him to be here?
Well, I like the way you asked that question. That's very appreciate your preparation, better than mine walking in here. But I think the fact of the matter is, nothing's changed. I'm going to answer the question the same way it always has. I think Aaron is probably more in tune than we would realize. But I have confidence in where he would be the day he would arrive if that's his decision. But what I've learned through instituting an off-season program, there are benefits of periods where your veterans aren't here. And so when, and we're talking about the quarterback position. So that this is very beneficial time for Will and Mason right now. They split all the reps today, in the last 2 days, and that's just great work. And when you see it improve from one day to the next, that's what you're looking for. So, all those things factor. But I'm comfortable where we are, and and giving him the space to make this decision.
Mike, what has Will and Mason's demeanor been like the last 2 days?
I'm sorry.
What has Will's and Mason's demeanor been
Demeanor?
like? Yeah, been like the last 2 days.
All football. I think it's just like anything. You play quarterback in this league. The opportunity to command the huddle and be the guy is those reps are so valuable. So I think they both clearly had a better day today, and they did yesterday, and that's the norm. That's how these things go.
Mike, I know you watched a lot of Will's practice tape, you said, and it's only been 2 days. Is there anything you saw about him when you see a guy on the field you went, whoa, look a little different?
I think he's done a really good job from which most rookies go through it. They go to pro football and they say, okay, I played at Ohio State, or I played at a big time place, won a national championship, and I think you realize that everybody in the locker room has a level of physical gifts, special individuals. So I think the level of conditioning and preparation, I know just meeting with him in January compared to today, he's had a really good, off season before the off season. He's in much better shape. I've been very impressed with his movement skills. We're just 2 days into the footwork drills, which we've been allowed to do the last 2 days. So, and I've been impressed.
How about call yourself a quarterback coach? You obviously, the offense runs through the quarterback and everything. And even the combine prospects talked about you meeting with them and kind of quizzing them. Do you do that with wide receivers too, or is it just a quarterback thing, or maybe other positions, but most so wide receivers know and offenses know and be able to answer you that way?
I mean, the combine exercise, I did it with every position. You know, I was the lead interviewer, which I really enjoyed. I've never been in that spot. You know, I've been in other programs that you know everybody gets you get a couple questions or a couple minutes. So to be able to sit there and go 20 minutes with a quarterback in that spot, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes with a D lineman or something. So you know I enjoy that. That's part of who I am professionally. Just the opportunity to talk football and really hear their story. That, to be honest with you, the schematic parts, you know, I'm just checking to see where he is, frankly. But I enjoy hearing their personal stories and their past more than anything. So, but yeah, that's definitely something I enjoy.
Like looking at how you structured the off-season program with this voluntary minicamp, some OTAs, and then mandatory, and then OTAs afterward, how did you kind of come up with that formula, specifically having minicamp when there's still a voluntary session afterward?
Just really what I've been talking about, the young players. I want to make sure, you know, it's I've done it different ways, but you can, in my opinion, you can really install everything you need in 8 installations. So we'll take the first 8 installation opportunities and we'll squeeze a trip to Kennywood in there, but a little goal there for you. But you know, we'll get the first 8 installations in there, and it gives me a chance to reassess, chance to see exactly where we are, because I always like to have that window at the end, and particularly if at some level, how much am I going to focus on the younger players? You know, because they're the ones that, you know, you have to bridge the gap between your veterans and your first-year players. So the design of the minicamp before the last 4 OTAs is part of the thinking there, so that when we come out of that minicamp, you know, I'll know exactly where we are. And like everything, like right now we're working on the first 8 OTAs. Because, you know, we try to stay a month and a half ahead. So, but we won't work on those last four till we see where we are. So that's the design of it.
You've spoken a few times conceptually about how you view the wide receiver positions. Not just sinking your teeth into it, getting to know the guys, getting to know the tape. How do you view DK within that construct? And have you worked with a guy that you can draw a comp to? I don't know if it's CD or Adams or, you know, like those guys aren't quite as big. But
I mean, CD's, you know, obviously a gifted player. I mean, he's dynamic. He's a dog. He's so gifted, and he's got an incredible personality. So I mean, but you know, I've been so fortunate. I could just go through the whole Green Bay crew. I mean, those guys were all exceptional players and people. So I don't really like to get into comparables because I've been so blessed to work with so many great players. But I'll say this about DK. DK is, I mean, he is. You know, his skill sets is top notch. I mean, you know, when you can take slants and, you know, different vertical routes to the house, I mean, he's so powerful and he's so strong. So just trying to get to know his strengths and how we can utilize him, and you know, try to build the route menu for him, particularly, and no different than all the conversations that we've had about receivers, because I think it's critical that they play the 1 position, the 2 position, or the 3 position. So we'll continue to look at that for DK.
You nature of being a head coach, like you're getting a new, sorry, Chris, then you get extra workouts, extra couple weeks and things, because you have to catch up. You're talking about language and all that. But at the same time, is it an advantage? Do you like it having extra time you have extra, coaches like extra workouts, extra weeks? Can it be an advantage? Do you use it to your advantage?
I think, honestly, if you talk to any coach that coached in the National Football League before the CBA in 2011, I think we all appreciate an extra couple days with our players. So, yes, I think this is awesome that they give you the extra 2 weeks.
Mike, you guys, this organization has made a lot of recent investments in the offensive line, and we've heard a lot in covering these guys, the communication abilities of guys like Zach Frazier, Troy Faltanu. What have you seen from them in the early days of learning the verbiage and going over the things that either impressed you or just thoughts you had?
I mean, it's obviously a very important group. You know, there's responsibility. The offensive line is a huge part of how I view the game of football, and I've been extremely impressed, you know, with the group. You know, you got a great bunch of veteran guys that I didn't know much about, and it's, I mean, you really look forward to the pads, but position flexibility is essential in today's game. I think the 17th game, when it went from 14 to 16, you see it heightened, each and every year. And my personal experience, I mean, offensive line availability, corners availability, those were really the positions I've seen the biggest challenge in probably the last 5 to 6 years from my personal experience. So, but boy, we got a heck of a group. We got a heck of a group to build on.
Mike, along the same lines of position versatility, you've talked about that with your receivers and your secondary, but interested to see what you think about Y.A. Black. They saw him as a 4-eye last year. Do you like bigger noses? They viewed Benton as a nose. Do you view him as a 3? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think those guys, just right off of what we talked about with the O-line, they have position flex. And, I mean, this is the biggest defensive line I've ever coached, and I think they look exactly how you're supposed to look. And the O-line and D-line will be the first group off the bus. I'm very impressed with the D-line group. But yes, position flexes. I mean, the reality of it is when you build, when you build your roster profiles, you talk about a 3-4 defense, and you go through the profiles of the nose, the 4-eye, the length and the body comps that you're looking for. But the game's still 75% sub defense. So, for the ability for those guys to play a 1 out to a 4-eye is important inside. Even out to a 5 preferably. So, and I think we got an excellent group to do that.
Mike, you mentioned O-line flexibility a couple times now. Have you made any changes of the guys from where they played the last season?
No, we're really just trying to teach concepts and making sure our terminology and our language is tightened up, buttoned up. Make sure we got our calls right, and but yeah, we've had guys work left and right side. We've only been at it 2 weeks. We've only been on the field 2 days, so.
Like someone like Will, a younger guy, does he need more reps now? I mean, is there a competition at all, or is he just too early? Is he going to let that play out?
We're just trying to get him as many reps as possible. Just the drill work is critical, because the drill work leads into the the routes on air and the individual routes. Yeah, so it's I mean we're competing to get better. I mean that's really what the competition is right now.
Mike, what did you before talking about going back to playing outdoors and cold weather and that kind of thing? Is there something about the AFC North that you've noticed that you've decided that you feel like you need to tailor your approach to?
Yeah, definitely. I think you just look at the profile of the teams. I mean, look at the profile of Baltimore, and it's been in place there for a long time. So, with Cleveland's, their emphasis on defensive personnel. So, yeah, definitely we're going to start actually during the draft is always a pretty interesting time for assistants, because you're there, throughout the evening, and the responsibility is limited. So, our assistant coaches are going to start looking at division opponents and start talking and making sure our in-season responsibilities, roles, and things of that nature, get the ball rolling on that. And then we'll spend some time on that in June to make sure that when we do go to camp, because we don't want to run out there and have 100 plays of everything. We want to have, we know the 6 teams that we need to beat, and we want to make sure that we're set to go against those 3 teams, the 6 games that we need to beat. So, yeah.
Mike, what did you like about Rico's game, and how do you see that coming back?
4-down player, Rico. Just watched him grow up as a young guy. He went through some injury challenges his first couple of years. I watched him, I'm fortunate to watch him grow up as a man, and his family, and but always loved the way he played the game, and former quarterback. So I mean, he has some skills that that may surprise some, but his play style, his running style is the first thing. But he's wicked smart, protections. He's an excellent 3rd down back, and the first time he touched the ball, he went 65 yards on a kickoff. So I mean, he's a really good player, and I think he's a great, him and Jalen are a great combination.
Like, obviously you guys are using this time to get on the same page from a football perspective, but you talked about enjoying hearing guys' personal stories. How big of a deal is this time to, when you're implementing a staff-wide change like this, get to know these guys on a personal level and start building those relationships?
I mean, it's important, but we need a couple more hours in a day. Right now, looking forward to the draft. It's incredible from every angle, but I'll be excited when we have our players from the draft and we could just focus on our 90-man roster, because I mean it's for every first-year staff. You know, it's a challenge. You know, coaches are trying to get homes and families and all that. So we're doing the best we can. But yes, I'm looking forward to when the players get back here and especially we get past the off-season program, phase 2, and get into OTAs.
How do you guys, two more. How do you go about as a coach deciding which cultural things or certain practices that you keep versus things you want to change? Like, for example, the turnover culture and the celebration of turnovers they always talked about, like, they did shirts or like 7 shots when you guys do practice and the emphasis behind that. How do you decide what you like to keep and change?
Well, I always ask, what was done. B, if I think it fits, then I'll utilize it. I have to believe in it. And fortunately, I've done this for, 18 years already, so I've tried some things that I won't do again, and have some things that have worked very well. So I think you just put that all together, and you're fortunate enough that those are good challenges to have to make those decisions. So I mean, especially the success that Mike Tomlin's had here. So we're very blessed to follow that.
Mike, last one. Potentially a 42-year-old quarterback, is having a veteran backup a luxury or a necessity in your eyes?
It's the quarterback room. We have. I really enjoy working with Mason and Will. So, ever how it shakes out, I believe in having 3. I mean, I've been 2. Just a few times in my life, but it was Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, so that's a luxury.
Special
to be in that
circumstance.
spot. But I believe in having 3. Potentially, we'd love to have 4. If we can make one work on the practice squad. So yeah, I've done this. I've always done it this way. We're developing the whole room, because when we get started, the lead guy he has his specific roles and responsibilities, but all the other guys too have responsibilities in that room. So, and that's why you got to develop all of them.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just a reminder, please get back to.
All right, so that is Mike McCarthy in a little pre-draft press conference, but it really wasn't about the draft. I just like to say it is a pre-draft press conference, because that's what it is. It happens before the draft. But this was more just him talking, and similar to when the coordinators talked. You could kind of group this into where the head coach and the coordinators talked, and then our head coach and our GM talked. Like, that's almost 2 different groups, 2 different topics, I guess. One more just football, one more just draft. So that is it for this. If you guys did enjoy it, please do leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.